Hello there, my name is Brendan Bottomley. I'm just creating this video to talk about the techniques and kind of work method that I use to create this mini diorama that you see in front of you. This was entered into a competition called VG Remix, which was hosted by Polycount and sponsored by Sketchfab. The competition was a bit of a throwback to the old days, like kind of PlayStation 2, with its texture restrictions of 128 by 128 for your hero pieces, and a geometry limit of 500 tries for those hero pieces as well. The theme of my diorama was based on an old Game & Watch console game called Octopus. I chose it because I thought the subject matter was quite good. Having a seascape with an octopus was quite challenging, so I thought, yep, I'll give that a go. Okay, so let's get straight into this. Now, with this diorama, the main centerpiece is obviously the octopus. Now, from the very start of the project, I had to look into how I was going to go about tackling the octopus. Now, from initial response, you would think that an octopus is quite a complex character and one that doesn't really lend itself well to such texture restrictions such as 128 by 128. But in closer inspection, it actually is a very good object for something like this. So let's have a look in Photoshop how we can break up the octopus into components that are easier to recognize in terms of UV layout. Okay, so if we have a look at an octopus, it basically consists of a head and 8 legs. Alright, so I'm not going to draw all 8, I'll just draw 4 for simplicity. Now, these 8 legs are all duplicated, right? So really, from a texturing point of view, I only want to concern myself with one leg, because I'm only going to texture that one leg, and then I'm going to duplicate that leg. All right, so let's have a look at these objects even closer. Now, if we look at the head, so the head is kind of elliptical shape. It has 2 eyes. And it has a back kind of egg-shaped head. Now, in terms of texturing, from a texturing point of view, I only really need to concern myself with one eye, because I'm going to mirror that across. So what I'm going to do in my UV layout is I'm going to get that one eye and then the UVs for the other side, and then just fold them in on them, fold the UVs in on themselves, creating a mirror for the 2 eyes. The back part of the head really is just all I'm going to do is create like a slither or just a section of the head, and then I'm just going to duplicate that around the head. So for the head, I've really basically got one little sort of UV spot for the eye, and then I've got a UV section for the back of the head, which has some kind of pattern down it. I'm not really sure. So that reduces the amount of texturing space for the head quite a lot. Now let's have a look at the leg. Okay, so the leg is basically just a tube with some kind of maybe hand on the end of it. Okay. Now, the leg itself can actually be broken down into sections. Repeating sections. You've pretty much just got some kind of pattern on top, and you've got these little suction cups on the bottom. They're all identical. So again, what I've done is I've just reduced this entire leg into one little section of my UV sheet as applied to that section of the leg. And what I did with my my octopus is I actually did a similar kind of thing to what I did with the eyes. Was that this section here is kind of halved. Let me see how's the best way to present this. I've actually grabbed the UVs and I've folded them in on themselves. Okay, kind of struggling a little bit. So let's say that's the center point there. This section to this section here, I've just folded those UVs, so these guys over here, and then I've just stacked those UVs along that leg, and that's pretty much finished that leg off. So at the end of it, all I need is these three parts. So I've got the eye, the back of the head, the repeating part of the leg sections, little tentacle suction cups at the bottom, some kind of pattern up the top, and also just this the leg here as well, which was some kind of tiny little thing like that. And all of a sudden, that octopus no longer looks so overwhelming in terms of how much texture space that it needs. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's go into Maya, and I'll just show you exactly what I did. Okay, here we go. All right, so I've just isolated the selection just to the head and the legs. And as you can see, if we look at the head, oops. Okay, so there's our eye right there. Okay, and that eye is mirrored, so you can see it right here. So the back of the head is this part here, and that's repeated right around the back of the head. Let's have a look at the legs, and the legs are just here. This whole, I've dedicated pretty much, say, 30 to 40% of my texture space has been dedicated to the legs. And as I said, see how I've folded the UVs in on themselves, so there and there, and then I've stacked that section from. So I've stacked that first section 3 times down that leg. Actually, it's easier to see on this leg here, so you can see it there. 1, 2, and 3, and then I've created a little hand at the end. Now, when I created the octopus, after I broke it up into so many pieces, I actually realized I had plenty more space left. So that's why I ended up creating the little gas mask nose that is in the original game is there. So I actually decided, well, I've got all this extra space, so I'll put that in, and there it is up there. That's how I broke up the UVs for the nose. Okay, so that's the octopus. Let's have a look. Now, in terms of geometry, what I did because I only had 500 tries to work with, what I did was I created this water wall in the background just to try and reduce heavily how many polygons I needed to use to try and get all 8 legs in. I actually didn't get all 8 legs in. I only got, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 legs. I felt it didn't really need an 8 legs. I could have put an 8th leg down the bottom here, which probably could have looked a bit better. Anyway, but I stuck to the 500 try limit. I pushed it right to the end. I've got exactly 500 tries in here. So if I select all the pieces, actually, 504. So I have to delete 4 tries. Anyway, okay, so let's have a look. So the head, let's isolate that. And you can see there's no back of the head, there's no bottom of the head. I deleted all those polygons out because they weren't visible to the viewer. Let's see, what else did I do? If you look at this leg here, if I isolate that leg, go around the back, you can see how it's missing a lot of polygons that I've just deleted from the back. And the reason for that is because when you're viewing this, you basically cannot look. If you get down to certain angles, you can see behind here, but pretty much most of the time, most people won't even notice the fact that there are missing polygons at the back of his leg. The other thing I did too is I painted into the water wall the legs, effectively, like, honestly deleting out about 200 or 300 tries. And even this leg at the back here, I didn't even have to paint him in because You just assume that because the leg is going so deep into the water that you wouldn't actually see it, through the water. So that's the octopus. Okay, so the next thing I want to look at is the treasure chest. Let's have a look at that guy. All right, so this was textured with a texture map of 64 by 64. Let's have a look at let's isolate the selection. All right, so the main focus of this object was to make sure that the gold coins on top really read well as gold coins and not some big blurry mess. Now to do so, and also have all the wood read well, I had to effectively fold the UVs on top 4 times over. Okay, so let me explain. All right, let's turn off the texture. Okay, if we have a look at this corner here, go to face mode and select those faces. As you can see, if you look over here in the UV editor, those 4 faces take up the whole quarter of where I've painted my coins in. And so what I've done is that quarter there is folded across to the other side, over to those faces, and that's folded across over to those faces. Let's get rid of these guys, and folded once again. So that quarter is basically used 4 times across the top surface of the treasure chest, and hence completely and utterly maximizing the use of such a limited texture space here. Even like the door, which I haven't completely finished texturing that. Oops. Anyway, but you can see how I've broken all that up as well. You can see how the side here, which is a semicircle or a semi-cylinder, I basically overlapped each one of these triangles on themselves, and then I've just painted this little section down the bottom here, and you can see how that shows up along the edge of that cylinder. Really good way of doing like car wheels or tires. You can really get those cylinders or circles looking really good with such a small amount of space being used. As you can see down there, the door itself has been flipped or folded in on itself with that UV split down the center there. Alright, so let's have a look at the little volcano here. When stacking your UVs, generally if there's too many of them, it becomes very repetitive, and a way to prevent that repetitiveness from showing is to actually flipping every second or third of UVs. And let me just demonstrate what I mean by that. Okay, so let's have a look at the back of this volcano. If you look at across the surface, it doesn't look like I've stacked all the UVs, and that's because what I've done is what have I done? Let's have a look. If I select these guys and those, okay. If I flip them back, okay. Now, if you look at that surface there, now it looks very repetitive. It's quite obvious that I've just stacked all my UVs, and to prevent that, what I've done is, as I said, every second or third kind of set of UVs or stack, I've just flipped them. So if I flip these guys back, see, I've broken up the obvious repetitiveness of stacking your UVs. Okay. And the last thing I want to look at, okay, let's have a look at this water on this top here, where I've got the little waves emanating from certain objects that are piercing through the top surface of the water. These little ripples here. This is a very simple little effect, and the way I've achieved that, I mean, it's pretty rudimentary, but it's quite effective, is I've just grabbed all my UVs, as you can see in the UV editor, I've just squashed them all down into one little, basically a line of UVs. So if I grab, say, if you look at that, so that's, if I select that UV point there, It's basically all the inner UVs sitting on top of each other. So if I move that around, I can actually change the way the water ripples